I see Linda, Kristen, Lucas, Mo, Hunter, Jeff, Chank. Quite a few people are joining now. Harry, welcome. Josh.
Just the cook time?
Soup.
Okay, thanks.
All right, good morning, everybody. We'll get started in about 30 seconds. We'll give people a couple more moments to log on.
Good morning, Carly.
Good morning, Candace. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
All righty, we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. My name is Carly. I am the Community Events and Partnerships Lead here at LearnIt, and I'm really excited to be joined by my colleague Marissa, who's our Community Events and Partnerships Coordinator. Hi, Marilyn. Good morning. And with us leading this session, we have the amazing Candace Porter, who I can't wait to have here. So for all of you who are new to our community, we welcome you, and we're really excited to be rounding out the year with this session on how to feel confident going into virtual performance reviews. And we run these community sessions every week. So we host these sessions every Friday for 45 minutes. And we've been really excited. We've hosted these sessions throughout all of 2020, and we'll be announcing new themes going into the new year and into 2021. So I really want to thank everybody who's been here and following alongside since the beginning of the pandemic. We saw a really big growth in these events. since we've all been in lockdown and through this second wave of lockdown, we really want to be here to support you along your learning journey and into this new year. So we're stepping into another year of change, a lot of opportunity for exciting growth, but we know that it's also challenging. So we're really excited to hopefully help support you through not only these events, but our new community platform we're launching offsite, which we'll talk about after the session. But I just really want to reiterate, thank you to all of you for a really great year. And we're so excited to round it out with Candace. So Marissa, if you don't mind going to the next slide on Candace's bio, I'd love to share a little bit more about Candace and our relationship with her. Candace is the founder of Effective Flow Connections. We work with Candace really closely with a lot of our clients here at Learn It when we do private trainings, executive trainings, and facilitation for teams. She actually ran our internal team offsite when we did an engagement in gosh, where was that? In Stinson Beach. So Candace has just been an amazing part of our Learn It team, an amazing part of my life for the last 2 years. And I actually was really excited about this session because Candace helped me prepare for my first performance review a year ago. And so I was really excited to ask her to do this session and bring that knowledge that she shared with me to all of you. So really excited to have Candace here. She is project management certified and is one of the lead teachers for the Project Management Institute and is also an adjunct professor for the University of Nevada, Reno. And also is a veteran as well and serves on the advisory committee for the Veteran Business Affairs. And so 100% of donations go towards the Veterans Guest House for this session as well. So we'll be sharing the link to donate to that just in the spirit of giving for the new year and just in support of our amazing veterans as well. So with that, I want to pass it over to Candace and just thank her so much for being here and working with us to do this session before the holidays. So thank you, Candace.
Thank you so much for the warm welcome. I'm so excited to be here with everyone today. And we're going to talk about how you can feel good going into your performance review session with your manager. I'm going to share a little bit of information here. Perfect. So, as Carly mentioned, that all donations today will be focused on Veterans Guest House. I'm a veteran. I absolutely love their mission. Just to give you a little bit additional detail about this organization, it's based here in Reno, Nevada. That's where my home is. And they are a really kind of grassroots organization. The reason that they came about is because there's a large VA hospital here where veterans come and they get treatment. And they started realizing that families and veterans were sleeping in their cars in the parking lot at night because some of them couldn't afford to get a hotel. So they purchased one house many years ago just outside the VA hospital. And they slowly have grown and grown. They now have 33 beds and they provide more than 6,000 bed nights a year to veterans based on donations. So again, pretty near and dear to my heart. So if you have any interest in donating, Carly's going to chat that link out to everyone. So let's dig in a little bit on what we're going to cover today. Again, I want you to feel comfortable going into your performance review and making sure that you're able to highlight your achievements, your goals, and your progress. Whenever you go in there, you also may want to be prepared to accept any feedback that your manager has for you. And if you have any ask for the coming year, that's going to be important to make sure that those are well thought out and that you may have some data to support that. We're going to end by talking about how you can make your 2021 goals stick as well. I want to really start out by saying that every organization approaches performance reviews in a different way. Sometimes you're asked for feedback in advance. So you have kind of a self-assessment that you submit that goes to your manager. Sometimes they're a little bit more informal where maybe your manager is completing it without your input. But what I want to stress is that you are the driver of your career. Your manager is not the driver of your career. Your leadership team is not the driver of your career. If you don't know where you're going or where you want to go, you should put some thought into that, because you need to be taking small steps towards that every year. Otherwise, you may end up doing something or in some part of your organization that you really weren't interested in doing in the first place. So again, I urge you to really think about some of those long-term career goals and short-term milestones that can help get you there. That's the number one thing here. You've got to really make sure you know where you're going. You also should be putting some thought into your accomplishments. And I like to approach this by blocking time on my calendar. I know that different fiscal years, maybe not everyone is going through your performance evaluations right now at the end of the calendar year. If your fiscal year starts in July, you may be going through them in more of the summer timeframe. But whatever that 12-month period is, I always like to block time at least once a quarter to make sure that I'm documenting my accomplishments. That's going to help you because you can look back on what you committed to in last year's performance evaluation, check in on those goals versus not looking at them until about a week before you meet with your manager and you're going to get feedback. So that's one thing that you can do very easily to make sure that you're focusing on what your commitments were and what some of your goals were from last year. Just block an hour or two each quarter in your calendar to make sure that you go and revisit this. A way that you can approach, and I am, as Carly mentioned, a project manager, so I like structure. I like to make sure that I'm organized on things like this. You can create a tracker. And I created this very quickly out of Excel, where you have the months down the left-hand side. And then again, every organization is different in regards to how you're being measured. So there's usually different categories. And I just created several categories as an example. Maybe communications and interpersonal skills are one, maybe your leadership skills, maybe creativity and innovation. But whatever it is that you're being measured against, if you create a simple Excel spreadsheet like this with the categories across the top, the months down the left-hand side, and then you're blocking that time on your calendar, maybe you even want to block it monthly. You can just very easily glance at your calendar when it's fresh in your mind and document the things that you've done to support those categories and any of your goals. So it's much easier to do this along the way than, again, wait until 11 months in and then try to remember what you committed to, go and find your document, and then be trying to scrounge everything together. So thoughtfulness is really going to help you with making progress. You also want to think about your growth. So if you're not learning, you're generally not growing. And one way that I recommend you approach this is sitting down and starting with this phrase. This is what I love doing. And think about when you come into work. What is it that really gets you going in regards to, I'm so excited for this project, or I'm so excited to do this next week? Now, I know that a lot of us really like to focus time on what we love doing when we're at work. And then I know that I'm a procrastinator if it's something that's going to be really hard or that I don't enjoy as much. So really thinking through that and checking in with yourself. This is what I love doing, and writing down what that looks like. Some examples of this could be, I love heads down time where I get lost in an Excel spreadsheet. So I like just being in my little bubble where I'm putting formulas in and I'm turning data into something meaningful that I can share with others. So if you enjoy doing that, that's a good one. Maybe it's opposite. Maybe you love giving presentations. I love getting in front of leaders and letting them know how our project progress is. Whatever it is, just spend some time thinking about this, because again, you can start driving your career in that direction. And you've got to know what you love to do and what you don't love to do. So you may also want to make a list. This is what I don't love doing. And that way you can start to kind of measure and check in. I know that I've actually recently done this for my company. You know, I love working with clients. I love execution. I love managing projects. And then there's some things that's on the back of the house for my company that I don't love doing as much. So how can I spend less time doing that and get the support that I need so that those functions can still be covered? So these are important things that you can and should be sharing with your manager in regards to kind of what you want to focus a lot of your time on. Now, realistically, we're probably all going to have tasks that we have to accomplish that maybe isn't what we really are passionate about, but that's okay. As long as we are aware of that, and again, driving our career in a direction of doing things that we do love. I'm also going to give you a structure that can help you whenever you're thinking about where you want your career to go. I know some of you may have seen this before. This is called the GROW model. And this is used pretty commonly in the coaching world, but it's an approach that you can take where you go really step by step. And when we're looking at the goal, so the first step of this, what do you want? When you're thinking about kind of what you're going to do long-term and short-term, I always recommend separating those out. So what do I want to do, first of all, long-term for my career? And be really specific on that. I know that sometimes it's hard to think, where am I going to be in 5 years? But where do you want to be in 5 years? You can write that out. You can describe it really clearly. And just putting thought into it can make a significant difference. What I then like to do is think about that long term and say, well, what do I want this year? So what can I do to start making steps towards that longer term goal? Really thinking through that and then going to reality. So where am I at right here, right now? So thinking about the current situation, kind of where are you within the organization? What would you need to do to start making that progress? So just describing in the reality where you're at here and now, and maybe some of the challenges that you may encounter trying to get there. Then we go on to the options. And with the options, think broadly. I mean, think big. Don't limit yourself to little steps. What could you do? And you want to come up with as many ideas as possible to get from reality to that longer term goal. So maybe I want to take a certification course. Maybe I want to ask my manager for some stretch projects. Maybe I want to volunteer in some way to get to know a group of people that I'd love to work with. You know, what could you do? And again, think broadly, list out all of the options that you can come up with. And then I like to go through and I like to prioritize those. So I like to put them in order. This is the best idea. I think that number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, and start to get that structured. Then what will you do? I always like to say that many of us are time bankrupt. So there's only so many hours in a day. We can come up with a huge list of things that we'd love to do, but realistically, what will I do? What can I commit to in order to start taking these steps? I think that this is a really nice structure. I actually have a worksheet that goes along with this that kind of walks you through the process. I know Carly's going to provide my contact information. So if you'd like to reach out to me, I'd be happy to share that with you. But this can be a really powerful activity where you're going through thinking long-term, thinking short-term kind of performance goals, looking at the reality, where am I today? What are some of the options to get from where I'm at today to where I want to be? And then actually narrowing it down to some things, some really specific things that you can commit to. SMART goals is really helpful on this too, especially when you're coming up with what will you do. So SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Really structuring it that way. And I'll say that again, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. Structuring it in that way when you're making those commitments can be really good. Has anyone ever, I'd love for you to give me a little bit of feedback here. And you can do this by taking your mouse and scrolling down to the bottom of Zoom. You'll see a participants menu that pops up. If you click on that, you're going to see some non-verbal feedback. You should see some little buttons that pop up underneath people's names where it says yes, no, go slower, go faster. I'd like for you, if you've used the GROW model or heard of it before, to give me a yes check mark. Okay, good. Awesome. Does anyone want to share your experience with using the GROW model, how it may have helped you? And I'll open it up to anyone that wants to come in over the microphone. Anyone want to share your experience with it? I've got 8 people that have used it before. Was it helpful?
Candace, I can share just a quick anecdote. I don't know if that's helpful. But
good, because I was going to call on you, Carly. Please.
I was just going to say, I think the reality of the current situation is also like grounding in terms of, okay, you know, this is my goal, this is where I want to get to, but what's the context in which I'm currently working in, and you know, what's realistic in terms of right now and what I'm facing. So I really like that point as kind of a launching ground for kind of meeting yourself where you are, so then it can feel attainable as you're thinking about how you want to build up to where you want to get to and what you're going to actually ask for in the present moment.
That's great. Thank you, Carly. I agree. You know, I think sometimes we get to a point where we feel stuck. I know in the past I felt stuck in some of my previous organizations where I wasn't sure what to do. So I knew what my goals were and I knew what the reality was, and I wasn't really sure how I could connect the two of them. And so pushing past that and through it to the options part, where you start trying to figure out how you can overcome some of those barriers. And when you start thinking creatively on this, then you start to realize, oh, I'm not stuck. There are a lot of things that I can do. And if you're looking for a change, you know, you've got to commit to that and you've got to stay focused on that. I always like this saying, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And that's the truth, that if you're just kind of floating around within your career, you're probably not going to end up where you want to be. So again, kind of pushing past that barrier phase or that mindset, you've got to have that open mindset where, okay, let's grow, let's continue to do what we need to do. I think many of us can also, I guess, feel that 2020 has been a different year than what we expected. And so if you're feeling like there's a setback here, then I think that's quite understandable. But I think that we should all be celebrating that we've made it almost to 2021 and we can look at it as kind of a fresh slate. So this year's not what we expected. We know that. As Carly mentioned, I was working with the Learn It team. I remember we kicked off the year at an offsite in person, the entire company, planning out and having some fun looking at 2020. And Carly, I'm going to guess that you're feeling like it didn't end up going where you thought it was going to go at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, it definitely took a bit of a turn. But actually, the goals we set, so I actually was looking, I was like, some of them still really did ring true because we laid the groundwork for some of it. You know, I mean, it looked really different. We didn't get to do exactly how we thought we were going to do it, but having the groundwork of it, I don't know. I was actually looking back at them, and it was still helpful to have that groundwork.
I completely agree. And I think that we should be looking at how we did things different or better this year. because I think that there's a lot of lessons learned. It's not what we expected, but wow, look at some of the cool things that we did do. And if we take some time to reflect on that and then bring those things, some of those best practices into our plans for 2021, that can be really powerful for looking at the future and where we want to go. One of the things that...
So, hi, Candice.
Hi, go ahead. Hi, Harry.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, like I wanted to share something like this sprint is really good as I am going to the performance review in a couple of weeks. So only thing here is like in this year during the pandemic, I have seen two managers. I have not met him personally, but I will be going with them for the performance review this year, for this end of this year. So how do we go about it? Like we have not met and we have not seen the dynamics of each other working together in the office setup, but only the communication that's been is only through the virtual and Zoom.
You cut out just a little bit at the end. Can you restate the actual question? I heard your earlier statements.
Yeah, how do we go about going to the performance review at this time and stage with the new manager?
Yeah, good question. I love that. If you've changed managers throughout this year and maybe you're still getting to know your current manager and they don't know some of the things that you've accomplished this year, one, I always encourage people, if you're not having one-on-ones with your manager routinely, so weekly or every other week is a cadence that I recommend, then I think that you should ask for that so that you can get to know them better. But to answer your question, I recommend documenting all of the things that you've done. And if you don't have that documented right now, go back and document all of it and then send it to your new manager or ask for time to meet with them and say, I know that us working together is a little bit new, but here's some of the awesome things that I've accomplished this year, because it's important for them to know. I think that a lot of us feel a little bit uncomfortable kind of tooting our own horn or bragging about our accomplishments, but this is the time for you to do it. When we're talking about your performance being evaluated, don't be shy and don't be timid about it. Use facts, as many facts and as much data as you can pull together is a great approach. So document that. What were your results? What were you trying to do? What effort did you put in? And what were the results? And you can get creative about how you gather that data. But Harry, great question. I recommend documenting everything from the year, sending it to them in advance, because what you don't want to do is wait until you sit down with your new manager and go through the evaluation or what they've documented on you and then say, oh, but I've done so much more than that. You want to give that to them well in advance. Good, great question. Any other questions? Yes, you're welcome. Any other questions right now? Okay, if we have any managers on here as well, if you're not routinely meeting with your team members, I recommend that you do that. Please get them on the calendar. Those one-on-ones can be so powerful, because if you're only asking your employees once a year, what are their growth objectives or what interests them, then that can be a little bit demotivating. So there shouldn't be any surprises when you're going through the actual performance review. This should be an ongoing conversation throughout the year where you're spending some time focusing on this. How are things going? Are there any barriers or challenges that you're encountering? As your manager, is there anything I can do to support you? So my grandfather, he's great. He lives in Missouri. That's where I'm originally from. And since I was a little girl, he would always say, when you look good, you feel good. And I want to remind everyone that we've all been working remote. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of us are wearing sweatpants, probably more than we should this year. But when you go into your performance review with your manager, I encourage you to dress the part. So feel good, get yourself pumped up before going in, even if it's virtual, and have that conversation. You're going to feel a lot different if you're in full sweats versus, okay, I'm dressed for this conversation because I may want to ask for something. I may want to have honest conversations with them. And so I encourage you when you're going into the conversation to look your best, feel your best, get that sense of confidence there. And Peter, I see your question. Great. Recommendations on one-on-one meeting formats, what to bring to them. I always like to open with a question if I'm meeting with an employee or team member. First thing I like to open with is what's on your mind. So if you kick that over to the employee, you're going to know where their head is at. That's the number one question I like to ask to start off. I have my list here of things that I'd like to talk about, and I generally send those to my employees in advance. I'll just keep a running list. I meet with one of my team members weekly, and I send her the list. Hey, let's talk about these things at our next one-on-one. But I always open with what's on your mind, or do you have anything to add to that agenda I sent you? The development conversation, again, I recommend just checking in monthly and asking them, how's it going? You know, anything that I can support you with as far as some of the goals that were set earlier in the year.
Hello?
Yes. Hello. Watsons, did you have a question? Okay. So let's talk about feedback now. You want your manager to provide you with feedback. What we don't want is pencil whipping. So when you're going into a performance review, you should go in really curious and requesting honest feedback from your manager, because we don't grow without feedback. And so I always say, go in expecting to hear some things that, okay, this is what I did well at, but this is where I can do better. And if you prepare yourself for that in advance, it's going to be a lot easier to take it gracefully. Because
Nine.
This will be done by 9:30.
Yeah, I know, but I need to make a call.
Oh, just a quick reminder for everybody, if you don't have a question, just stay on mute, just so we can focus on Candace and the presentation. Thanks.
Thanks, Carly. Yeah, so go in ready for feedback. And if your manager's not giving you feedback, ask them. You know, I gave you my list of accomplishments I've been really excited about this year. What do you think I could do differently or better? And when they start giving you feedback, truly listen. Commit to listening. I know that sometimes we can start to think of excuses or how we're going to push back without fully listening when we're hearing something that we don't want to, because it's hard sometimes to hear feedback if we aren't self-aware about some things that we're being told. So one, listen fully when you have the opportunity and receive that feedback. Another one I like to say, be curious. If they're explaining something to you or giving you feedback and you don't quite understand, or maybe you do disagree, ask questions, because perception's everything. Maybe they perceived something. So ask some questions, listen fully, be curious and ask questions, and realize that it's not personal. When you're getting feedback in the workplace, it's not that someone doesn't like you. It's, okay, here's some things that you can do better to support you with your career goals. That should be kind of what the focus is. So check your emotions at the door. The second you're going to go into that performance review, expect feedback, expect some things that you may not love to hear, but keep your ears open, ask questions, and kind of separate your emotions. You can process it after the meeting, but make sure that you get all the information that you need to fully process it. And then put some thought into it afterwards and create a plan for addressing the feedback that you received. If your manager gives you feedback You go away, you think about it, and then the next time you meet with them, you're really upfront and say, I've thought about that feedback that you've provided me, and here's 3 things that I think that I can do to help answer the mail on it. They're going to be really impressed, and they're going to know that you're committed to doing better. Lauren, I love growth mindset is something we focus on when preparing for these conversations. I love that. So keeping your mind open and really being focused on that growth versus kind of closed off where it's not my fault. There's something's not maybe going the best that it could. Love that. And then I really like this quote from Bill Gates here. You know, we all need people that give us feedback. That's how we improve. That's true. If you're not getting feedback, again, you should ask for it. If you're not meeting one-on-one with your manager, you should ask for those meetings. They can be really powerful, so there's no surprises at the end of the year. I've been with several organizations and they all did performance management in a different way. So when I was with the Air Force, they are really kind of stringent about all of the way that they approach, you know, and really specific way of writing the bullets and filling out all of the forms. And then I've been with organizations that it was kind of a 1-page Word document where you sit down, you commit to a few things, and then, you know, it's up to you to own that as the employee. I need to check in on that because it's going to be a while before we check back in, and I need to be making progress on these things that I committed to. You know, I'm the accountable one. I'm the one that needs to be driving the success. And then when we're in those meetings, you need to go in knowing what do you want. So is there a specific ask that you have of your manager? You know, we talked about you go through the GROW model and you know your long-term and your short-term kind of goals here. And then you come up with your options and then you come up with what will you do. Do you want to ask your manager for something specific in this meeting? You know, I would like to go through this certification course. Sometimes there's merit increases as far as pay goes with your performance evaluations. If that's your focus, do your research. Do your research with anything that you're going to ask for and have some data to back that up. If you think that you should be asking for a raise, you know, what's the market say for someone in your position with your number of years of experience? So go in there with some data. If you're asking for some training, have you explored? Do you know what's out there? Do you know how much it costs? Do you know when it is? If you want to go through a certification program, you say, I'd like to go through a certification program. And they say, okay, which one? And you say, I don't know, I'll look into it. Like, that's not a solid ask. So have that data, have those facts. And I always tell people, have an ask, this is my number one ask for this session, and then have a backup ask. If you're told no, what can you ask for as kind of a secondary? What's a concession? And that can be a smaller ask. You probably don't want to go for a bigger ask on the second ask, but have something in your back pocket. Don't just say, okay, they said no and walk out of there crushed. Have a plan where, okay, well, could I do this instead? And so truly think through, only you know what those asks are going to look like and how that's going to feel for you. But all of the things that we covered today, track your goals and accomplishments for sure. Make sure that your managers have those in advance for this past year so that they can reference them when they're creating your actual review. And then think through the GROW model, what you want in the future, and then come down with some really specific development things that you can ask for and talk about. And when you go in, be confident, look good, feel good, take feedback with grace. If there's not any feedback in that session, ask for it, because none of us are perfect. There's always room for improvement. And then if you have an ask, think it through, do your homework, bring the data with you to support it. And that is it as far as the presentation. I'd love to see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Candace. Thank you, thank you.
My pleasure. I know we addressed some of the questions as we went. Give it another few seconds and
Absolutely.
so Josh, can you show the slide early on addressing the timeline of what's been done? I think you're talking about the Excel tracker. This one, Josh? Okay, perfect. There you go. Yeah, at the top of this for the categories, that's what I recommend you align specifically to the performance review that your organization is using. Usually there's some type of competencies or categories. And so if you're able to really track your progress in alignment with those, it's going to be a lot easier. Wonderful. I'm glad the GROW model was helpful. Again, if you want to email me directly, I can happily send you a GROW worksheet that I've used, and it kind of walks you through thinking through long-term, short-term. More than happy to share that. Okay. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Carly. Thank you all so much for attending today. It was such a pleasure, and wishing you the best in your next performance review.
Thank you so much, Candace. And as Candace said, I'll be providing Candace's email after this session, and the recording of this session will be available on Offsite, Learnit's community platform as well. And you can always reach out to Candace and Marissa and I on questions you have as well. And if you want to continue the discussion with our community, just, if you have more questions, if those come up, please, we would love to hear from you in Offsite, our community platform. So that's a great space to share ideas and we can keep building on this conversation. Or if you even want to go through your own GROW model or some of the asks you're asking for, we'd love to see those posted in Offsite and hear what you're working on. And our instructor team can help you work through that. So, and if you do post a specific question, we do have a 24-hour turnaround time. So our commitment is to get back to you within 24 hours. So I'll go ahead and put the link to Offsite in the chat right now, so all of you can check that out if that's of interest. Oh, I think I just sent it to just Marissa. But that is offsitebylernit.com. And so that's one way to dive a little bit deeper. As well as we have some great January events coming up. So I will be emailing out the events for January. Our theme is self-leadership. So we have some events, an event on inspiring and inspired leadership. We have an event on time management. So I'll be emailing out that calendar for all of you if you're interested in attending any of those sessions as well. And lastly, I'd love to share with all of you the link to Veterans Guest House. Again, Candace is an incredible part of their organization and a veteran herself. So if you found today's session helpful, we'd love to kind of pay it forward to the Veterans Guest House in their effort to provide and support veterans through the holiday season. So much. We'll close out with video on Offsite, our new platform. But before I do that, I want to give just another moment for anyone to come off mute and ask a question. I know we have 1 or 2 more minutes with Candace before she has to jump off. But if there are any last questions, do feel free to come off mute. No? All right, awesome. Well, we will close it out. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Awesome, here we go. Slowly but surely, everybody. Okay.
Hello, and welcome to Offsite by Learnit. I'm Carly, Community Lead. Offsite is a new online community dedicated to fostering the principles, skills, and connections to thrive in the new normal. It's a place you can go to reconnect with your professional goals and aspirations and find answers by collaborating with a group of intelligent people from all over the world. And now, more than ever, with the crisis affecting everyone in some way, we are all looking for safe, inclusive spaces to connect with each other, to learn new things about the topics that matter most, and to grow together personally and professionally. So whether you are working on your own personal growth, working with technology, working with others, or leading people in teams, Offsite can help. Offsite is organized by topic. So if you're looking for career advice, insights on business, free workshops, or a good book on leadership, it's all on Offsite. And in the spirit of community, we are looking to you to help us shape this platform. We encourage you to engage with your peers and instructors, share your thoughts, and ask questions. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. We are so excited to be launching this online community, and we can't wait to see you here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your time and attention. Really grateful for each of you, and I hope you have a really wonderful and safe and healthy holiday season.
Thank you, Carly. Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in. Happy holidays, Peter. Thanks, Roel. Great to see you. Thank you, Michelle. All right. Take care, everybody.